Alright everyone, welcome back to Baby Mother Reviews. Today we've got a new release from House of Gog. This is called Jaak the Giant Hunter. Now this one comes hot on the heels of their original release, which was Moonstone. And we're going to jump straight into the review. We're going to talk sculpt and design, we're going to talk paint, and then production quality. So let's not waste any more time. Let's do it right now. Alright, so Jaak the Giant Hunter comes from the same world as Moonstone, this Derelict Planet, which was created by French artist Pascal Blanché. And inside the box you do get a little copy of the print that this one is based on. And House of Gog's mandate for this statue is to get the statue as close as humanly possible to this piece of art here. And they did a really nice job of that. And part of the reason is the original piece of art is a 3D model. So they started with the actual files from that print and reworked it a little bit so that it could be produced as a statue that you see here. Now, one of the things I like about these statues is it leaves a lot to your own imagination. I mean, they give you little tidbits of the story. Jaak, she's this famed hunter, feared hunter in this world, strikes fear into the hearts of everyone that comes across her path. She hunts for bounties, she hunts for trophies. And that's about all you kind of know about this character. So, let's take a look at this base. Now, she's standing atop this gigantic skull, obviously one of the giants that she's hunted down and killed. This could be one of her trophies. They're known as tech giants, and you can see, embedded in the skull is this engine. You've got some metal plates around this eye socket here, and this engine looks very similar to the engine worn on the back of Moonstone, the statue that came before her. It's got these little things sticking out of the skull. I don't want to say what they are because I don't know. Nobody knows. You can use your imagination again, what's going on here. One of my favorite parts of the character Jaak herself is her shoes. She's got these old school high top shoes, but kind of outfitted with some kind of mechanical clamp that's clamped around her ankles and shin there. So those look kind of cool. It's this blend of kind of technology and old world style. Again, you got the gas mask on her face hooked up to this canister here. What's that for? Does she need it to breathe? Does it give her extra power? Like a boost of energy or something like Bane? Like, is it some kind of Venom type contraption in there like Bane from Batman? She's got this weird looking octopus style arm. And again, is that her real arm? Is it a prosthetic? Did she lose her real arm? Is it a weapon that she's wearing? We don't know. Again, and a giant gun strapped to her back here. One nice part about the statue is the texturing on her poncho and hood. Very nice job there. That came out very nice and clean. So when you view this statue in light of their goal, which as I said is to get it as close as possible to the original art, I think they've done a nice job here. Now this statue does come with a couple switch out parts, and we'll talk about those next. Alright, so you can see we've switched out the portrait and the weapon on this statue, and this is known as the Blade Master optional display. Now quickly before we talk about those extra parts, I will note that you get extra display stands, so whichever portrait you're not using you can put down on here, still display it beside your statue, which is always nice to be able to do that. And not only that, you can also display the weapon that you're not using on this additional display stand here. So that's always nice because those extra parts, I mean, they really are part of the statue. I wish more companies would start doing this because, I want to display those alternate heads. They look good. And also you have easy access to them if you ever want to switch them out. Now another thing to note is, even though you can mix and match, you can put whichever portrait you want with whichever weapon you want. The intent was either full Blade Master or the full original display that you saw last segment. Now let's talk about these parts here. Obviously you've got this much larger weapon strapped over her shoulders here with this very large 4-bladed spear tip on the end. Looks very deadly in her hands. And you got this Japanese style, almost samurai style hat. And then underneath that, you can see she's got almost a Cyclops style visor over her eyes, and you can see the bottom half of her face. Now, if there's one area where I think the statue and Moonstone as well could really be improved, it's the portraits. We're just not getting really good portraits on these statues, and you know, seeing what other companies are able to do, it's a little bit disappointing, I have to say. You know, and I understand the intent is to stick as very closely as you can to the original piece of art, but I mean, hey, we've got this, which is almost exactly, you've done it. You've already achieved your goal. Let's do a little bit more. Let's push the envelope a little bit more on these portraits. I don't think they need to be photorealistic or anything, but I think there's room to improve them there. But either way, you get two pretty neat, unique displays for this statue. Let's move on. We'll talk about the paint. Alright, so paint on this statue. Again, the mandate was stick as close to that original artwork as possible, and I think they did a really nice job with it again. One thing that's interesting is this statue really boils down to basically three different colors. You've got this sort of dark, it's kind of a bluey, greenish, gray color that you see on most of the weapon here and the back of the skull. You've got this nice bright orange, which I'm kind of a little biased towards. I'm a big fan of the color orange. And then you got this sort of almost turquoisey, bright green on her hood and her cloak. And I really like the color, the mixture of color on this piece, and some nice shading on the cloak there. You know, and again, you know, they're sticking as close to that original print as possible, and I think they did a really good job with it. The colors overall and the paint job, you know, it looks really nice. Alright, let's talk production and build quality for this statue. Now, one thing I'll have to note off the top is that this statue came out hot on the heels of their original release, Moonstone. And the way House of Gog was able to do that was they actually put it into production long before the pre-orders were ever announced. So a bit of a risky thing to do, because they had to finance that all themselves and take on all the risk for this piece. But it's kind of a nice business model if you think about it. I mean, how nice would it be to get your statues within a month or two of pre-order instead of a year or two like most statues in the industry? So I have to give props to House of Gog for that. Inside the box, you do get some nice goodies. You did see the art print that you get, and it would be nice to display that next to the piece, because then you could really compare and see just how close they came to almost exactly matching it. There is an assembly guide in the box. It walks you through step-by-step instructions, shows you all the parts that you get. So you may want to take a quick look at that, because you do have to do it in a particular order. You know, for example, you have to put the gun on before you put the portrait on. Things like that. So it's worth a look. You also get this little metallic card. It's like about the size of a credit card. And it says 002 on it. Now, that's not the number of your particular statue. It's the number of the statue in the series. So it's the second piece in the Pascal Blanché series. Moonstone had 001. Jaak here is 002. Now, the statue itself, it weighs about 8 or 9 pounds. So that's a decent weight given its size, which is roughly 1/6 scale, maybe a little bit bigger than that. The parts seem to fit together pretty smoothly. There's some magnets there. There is a magnet on the back to help hold the gun close to her back and keep it from falling off. So pretty nice job overall with that. I do like that House of Gog is doing some forward thinking with some of the materials that they're using. And I'll show you what I mean. With the alternate gun, you can see the strap is a flexible material. This big tube here is a flexible material as well. And that helps to mitigate the risk of breakage somewhat. Now, it doesn't mean it can't break. In fact, I did have some breakage on this piece. Before I talk about that, the people at House of Gog will help you out if you have any issues at all. They're great people, so they will help you out, so no worries there. You can see I've got my replacement, but this tube, for example, was broken off, and I think it's because you got this flexible material going into this very stiff, hard material of the gun barrel. I think it's prone to breakage in those types of areas. I think a piece like that could have been a separate piece, maybe attached with magnets. So I like the material, I like that thinking, but perhaps there's a little bit more thought that can be given to how the statue actually breaks down to help almost eliminate the chance of breakage. But overall, this is a pretty nice production from House of Gog, and I'm excited to see what they do next in the series. Alright, time to wrap up this review here. We got Jaak the Giant Hunter from House of Gog. This is part of their art statue line, and when you view this statue in light of what they were trying to do, which is match the artwork as closely as possible, and I'll show it to you once again here with the print that you get in the box, you have to view this statue as a success because they matched it almost to a T. All the sculpted details are there. They did ramp up the textures a little bit, which I think adds a little bit extra oomph to the piece, and I really like that. The paint scheme, you got this tricolor paint scheme that again is basically straight off the page. So they've matched it almost exactly. Now if you want a little bit of a different look, you get the extra parts, the Blade Master options. I like the display stands that you get with the piece. So you can keep these on display next to your statue. I think there's room to improve on these portraits, so let's see what they do in the future there. But overall, it's a really nice piece, as I said. Production quality, pretty good. You got a great packaging, some flexible materials, so there's some forward thought there. Although I think there's more room to help mitigate the risk of damage on these complicated pieces with little tiny parts all over the place. But overall, like I said, House of Gog did a great job. If you're looking for something a little bit different in your collection, you can see I'm surrounded by superheroes here behind me, and the market is really saturated with those types of things. House of Gog is trying to stand out with these original art statues, and I think they're doing a good job so far with that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Jaak the Giant Hunter from House of Gog. Stay tuned to the channel. We'll always have more to come, and we'll talk to you guys soon.